One of the most unique activities that visitors of Budapest can do as they explore the city is to go for a miniature statue hunt. But who made these statues? Where can you find them? And what's the meaning behind them? Let's find out in today's video, where we dive deep into this world of the hidden statues of Budapest. Now, the first mini statue that we will be showing to you is probably the most important to understand a little bit more about the artist behind it. We call these as Kolodko statues because the person who created these is known as Mihály Kolodko. He was born in Ukraine as a Ukrainian with Hungarian heritage, and when he was a child, he was watching a lot of television and he learned Hungarian by watching Hungarian cartoons. This guy here is the chief worm from the famous Nagy Horgász animation that there used to be. Now that kind of translates as the great fisherman, because horgász means fisherman, and the chief worm, the főkukac, was the helper of the fisherman in those cartoons. I also loved it as a child. It was really fun, and Mihály Kolodko, who creates a lot of these statues, learned Hungarian by watching this particular cartoon. And you will see in this video that some other statues will also reference classic Hungarian animation. So right now we are at Szél Square, and here at the stairs you will find Mekk Mester, who's a character from a very old Hungarian puppet show. Master Mekk is what we call in Hungarian as a ezermester. That kind of means master of 1,000 arts. But the joke actually is that in that puppet show he was absolutely bad and terrible at everything he tried to do. And here you can see he's trying to either take off a sign or put it back on. We don't exactly know, but on the sign you will find Moskva tér, because originally in socialist times this place was called Moscow Square, Moskva tér, and before that it was Szél Square, named after a famous Hungarian person. And in the last several years, due to some changes here in Budapest, we have changed back to the original name. This is Szél Square. Maybe he's late to the game, maybe he wants to put it back on, maybe he took it off, we don't know, but it's for sure he's always doing a terrible job. Now, if you visit the castle district, you can take multiple stairs all the way down and perhaps go to Batthyány Square. And if you do so, perhaps, if you take the right stairs and the right path, you may end up at a park. And here you will find not only one statue, but multiple ones. You will find some small dogs, but also a coin that depicts King Matthias of Hungary. Now, why is this? Well, there's been a folk tale back in the days which said that there was only a dog fair, a dog market in Buda only once. And this is related to all the many folk stories we have about King Matthias. But this is also a Hungarian saying. Egyszer volt Budán kutyavásár, which kind of means that if there was a chance, a opportunity, it may no longer be there. So if you did not take your chances, those chances are gone. You will never be able to take them again. And that's based on this story of King Matthias. And now we are on our way to Batthyány Square, but we made a stop here at Medve utca. And this is important. Medve means bear in English. You'll find two bears here, but the messaging here is a little bit more complex. You will see Masha's bear from Masha and the Bear, the Russian animation, and here he's depicted as someone who's being defeated by another bear, Paddington, who, as we know, is British. But that's not the point. The point is that in Ukraine, the voice actor for Paddington was none other than the president of Ukraine today, Zelensky. I guess the joke and the messaging here is pretty simple and pretty fantastic as well. Now in this video we show you guys a lot of statues and sculptures, and the stories behind them, but the reality is that a lot of this is just guesswork or based on some information available through interviews, rare interviews with the artist. So not all of them have any kind of deep meaning that we for sure know. Like for example, here we are close to Batthyány Square. In the background you see the Parliament building, and here is the sad tank. Why is he sad? I don't know, but likely it's a reference to what Hungarians did back in 1956 when the revolution happened in October against the communist regime. Then there were quite a few tanks running around the streets of Budapest when the Soviets came in to save the local government. Maybe it's a reference to that. Or maybe it's just a very simple message about violence, guns and war being generally bad and not good for us as humanity. Now, just a few meters away from where we were the last time, at the sad tank, you have the Rubiks Cube. Quite simple, commemorating Ernő Rubik, who was the inventor behind this childhood favorite toy. If you had some in your childhood, let us know in the comments. How many times did you actually solve Rubik's Cube? We're still walking along the Danube River here on the Buda side, and the next statue is also here, and this one is an interactive one. Now this one here references one of my favorite old school Hungarian movies, which is A tizedes meg a többiek, or The Corporal and the Others, which is a comedy, but it's about World War II, and it's about how some Hungarian soldiers are hiding and the Germans are coming in, and the joke is that the Russians are already in the Speis, they are already in the pantry. And that's a Hungarian joke that we say sometimes, az oroszok már a Speisban vannak, which kind of sounds ridiculous when it comes to talking about warfare. Now today we won't be going to the castle district, but up there at the upper station of the funicular there's also one other mini statue that is really cool, but I'm not going to talk about it in this video. If you want to see where it is and what it looks like, then check out my video about the most photogenic spots of Budapest. And now as we make our way to the next statue, I just want to say that if you enjoy this type of content, then consider liking the video and leaving a comment for us, because that also supports the video to reach multiple other people. However, if you really enjoy the complete work of what we do and you want to support us in other ways, then you can also do so by giving us a thanks via the thanks button, or you can also join us and become a member. Our members get some behind the scenes information, they get access to a cool map where we leave lots of stuff, cool places to visit and see here in Budapest. Or if you want, you can also support not just me, but your fashion as well by checking out some of our merch. I will leave the links in the description. And again, thank you so much for all the support that we get, especially to our lovely community members who are here. Thank you guys for supporting us. And now, let's go to the next statue. Next, here we see another animation being referenced. He is Vuk, the red fox. He was a character from a novel, a children's novel, that was also turned into an animation, one of my favorites. And we are really close to the Rudas thermal bath. So if you come here for some relaxing times in the thermal waters, then you can visit him. Now this is referencing a scene from that animation where he was hanging from a cliff, not a bomb. So you may understand here the reference of a bomb is more talking about war and the horrors of war itself, like some of the other statues that you will see in this video. So right now we are at Szent Gellért Square, and in order to find the next statue, we need to head underground. Let's go! So right here at the subway station we have Yoda, Master Yoda from the Star Wars movies. And why he's here? Well, that's a really good question. There isn't really a clear explanation. Perhaps the reason is that this metro line number 4, has the green color, just like Master Yoda has, or it's because we are right next to a university, and if you go to universities, you're supposed to become wiser. But also another explanation could be that we are in a subway station where people just come and go, rush past, and the message here is that you should also be like Yoda, relax, meditate, and don't rush in your life. Whichever you think is the real explanation, he's a pretty cool character, but if you want to visit him here, make sure to have a valid pass, or you validate your ticket upstairs and then use the metro. If you walk across the Liberty Bridge, you can meet none other than Franz Joseph, who was the Emperor of Austria and also the King of Hungary. But why is he here cozy in a hammock? Well, this is Liberty Bridge, but the original name of this bridge was the Franz Joseph Bridge. And fun fact, he was still alive when this bridge was given over to the public. He actually visited Budapest to be here during the celebration when this bridge was given over to people to walk across the Danube. And today you can also do so and meet him here. Now the other thing that's really fun, kind of, is how he's here, because he's placed here using locks, which is also a reference, as you can see, the tradition of putting locks onto this bridge. Now the thing is, I'm not really a fan of it, but there you go. That's also something for you to know. So you might be wondering, what's the deal with making mini statues? Well, making statues is an expensive thing to do. So sculptors, apparently what they do is they make smaller versions of their visions that they really want to create. And Kolodko kind of thought, why do I even need to make the bigger versions when I can make so much more art with the smaller mini statues? So it's like a cost cut, but also a way to make more of your art. Now if you walk along the Danube promenade, you'll find a few statues here, but those are bigger ones. You will easily miss, if you don't pay attention, the balloon dog here, which is actually a reference to Jeff Koons's work, because he had a series of balloon dog sculptures, and this is like commemorating that. But not so far from here, there's actually another statue, which is a life-size statue of a person, Ignác Roškovič, and that is also made by Kolodko. So he's not only making small statues, he also makes large regular-sized statues as well. In case you're exploring the Váci shopping street or the Vörösmarty Square, you might as well make a stop here at 30. utca, where we have Mr. Bean's teddy bear, right up there. Now why is he here? Well, this building right behind me used to be the old British embassy. And of course, Mr. Bean is a British icon, and his TV series was very popular here in Hungary. Hence this little memory of him here. And now we are making our way towards the parliament, but first we make a brief stop here at Szabadság Square, where, if you look carefully, you can find Kermit the Frog. Now why is he here? Well, technically he's a duplicate, because the original Kermit the Frog statue is located closer to Mr. Kolodko's home in Ukraine, in a place called Perecseny. Well, apparently back in the old times, people still used to eat frogs, and there you have Kermit the Frog, sort of like as a memory of these old times. But he's also here visiting Budapest, and you can also visit him if you look carefully when you walk towards the parliament. And now we are back on the shores of the Danube River, right next to the parliament. We have here Ushanka Returns. Now the name may suggest that this is actually the second statue, and that is correct. The original statue was back at Szabadság Square. Right there, there is a monument for the Soviet liberation during World War II, but that is kind of a controversial monument, because that liberation, according to like my grandma and my great-grandma, wasn't really a peaceful and happy one. So we Hungarians don't really like that that monument is right there. However, the original Ushanka was close to that. And apparently the original messaging was sort of like that there is some sort of a Russian interference into Hungarian lives. That's why it was there. But some politicians did not understand that that's the messaging, and one guy, one politician, basically cut that out from its original place using an axe and then threw it into the Danube River. But Mihály Kolodko kind of made a joke about this, and Ushanka returned thanks to frogs. These frog legs kind of symbolize that a frog probably took the Ushanka from the river and then ended up here, hence the name Ushanka Returns. And right now we are back at Szabadság Square because this here is the original place where the Ushanka statue actually used to be. But instead of simply replacing it, Mihály Kolodko basically commemorated the act that happened to the original statue by placing an axe. The axe that removed the statue from here, and then Ushanka was thrown into the Danube. That's why we have an axe here instead of having a replica of the original statue. Not too far from the parliament, there's a street which is called the Hold Street. Now, hold in Hungarian means moon, and here we have this spherical shape, so it's a no-brainer to put a moonwalker right here. That's right, we are in space now. That's the only reason, because we are here at Hold utca on the moon. We have the small, cute moonwalker. Now, in case you go to Nyugati railway station, you might find Skála Kópé. Now, right here there's a very ugly building. This used to be a Skála, which was a chain of department stores. And their mascot character was Skála Kópé, and in the old times, in the socialist times, during the commercials, he was saying, "Én vagyok a Skála Kópé, a szívem a vásárlóké," which roughly translates as "I am Skála Kópé and my heart belongs to the customers." Right now we are next to one of the most popular places here in Budapest, the New York Cafe, which is also known as the world's most beautiful cafe. And if you walk alongside of it in the Dohány Street, you will find the Scuba Diver with a key. And you might be wondering, next to the cafe, a scuba diver and a key, what does this all mean? Well, the placement is not a mistake. They are connected, because apparently when the New York Cafe opened more than 100 years ago, it was a really popular place, not just for coffee, but also for drinking late night and having parties. And the people enjoyed them so much here that legend has it, they stole the key, threw it into the Danube, so they cannot lock up New York Cafe, it cannot close, the party can go on forever. And the little scuba diver here apparently fetched the key back here to its original place. That's why you will find the scuba diver with the key right next to the New York Cafe. So this next one is actually not too far from our previous location, the Dohány Street with the New York Cafe. We are in front of the Pesti Hungarian Theater, and here you can find this wonderful looking classic car. This is the 14 Carat Car, not carrots as in vegetables, but as in gold value. The reason why this is here is because of the street and one of the houses. Here we have the Rejtő Jenő Street. And in one of these houses, Rejtő Jenő, the famous journalist and writer, he was living here and he was producing his art. And this car, the 14 Carat Car, refers to actually one of his novels, which had the same title, about the wonderful adventures of Ivan Gorchev and the Alfa Romeo that was really important to somebody in that story. And I really love what Rejtő Jenő did back in those times. One of my favorite novels is actually from him, Dirty Fred. If you can find it, try to get it, try to read it, you will not be disappointed. It's a really funny story. I just love his humor. Now the thing is that in Budapest, if you walk around, you'll see lots and lots of statues and sculptures, but most of them will either depict men or animals. And even if you will find statues and sculptures of women, most of them will be there for artistic purposes and not depicting real people from history. This one here was created by the artist so that there will be more statues that commemorate real people. Right now we are here at the Szenes Hanna Park, and this statue also depicts a forgotten hero, Szenes Hanna. She used to be a poet who had Jewish ancestry, and during World War II she had to flee the country to evade prosecution, but she had the courage to participate in a very special British operation to be parachuted back into Hungary to try to save as many Jews as possible. But unfortunately, she got captured during this operation and she was tortured. But today her statue stands here so that it reminds us Hungarians of her heroic acts back in those times. Now in this video I may be using the words sculpture and statue probably the wrong way all the time, and before you go into the comments section to correct me on the proper usage, I do have to say the very reason why I make these mistakes is because in the Hungarian language we don't actually have a separate word for a sculpture and a statue. We only have one word, and that is szobor. That's why we call these mini szobrok, as in small statues, small sculptures, mini sculptures. So please bear with me, I grew up with only one single word for all of these, and by default I just say statue most of the time. However, if you enjoyed this video about the mini sculptures and statues, you could also check out our video about the larger ones, because we made that previously, and then you can learn about some of the more fascinating other sculptures and statues here in Budapest. By the way, this one here is Noah's Ark, and we are at Bethlen Gábor Square, not too far from Kereti railway station, if you want to find this one. And I think this next guy here needs absolutely no introduction. This is Garfield, one of the most famous cats all over the world. But why is he here? Well, we are really close to Kereti railway station here in the Dembinski street, and this here is the fence of the Veterinary University in Budapest. If you look at the fence, you see that there are other animals also depicted, and this here was an empty space apparently, and this is not confirmed, but if it's true, it's a really wholesome story. The university campus had a cat whose name was Marci, and his colors were similar to the colors of Garfield, and he's here to commemorate the popular cat Marci of this university. And now we are on our way to the Városliget City Park, but we make a stop here at the Damjanics Street because this is where you find another famous character, Winnie the Pooh. Now why is he here? Well, as the plaque says, this is where Karinti Frigyes was born, and he's important because he was the first person to translate Winnie the Pooh into Hungarian. We call him Mici Mackó. That's how I read these stories for the first time in my life. And Karinti Frigyes was a really important part of the Hungarian literature. He wrote a lot of satires, he was a really funny guy, he did even cosplay at the beginning of the 20th century when he dressed up as cowboy, and I'm sure he dressed up in other ways, and he had a really bohemian life, going to cafes, writing fun stories. I really like his work. Now, if you're exploring the Városliget City Park and you walk alongside the Museum of Ethnography, you will find one of the most peculiar statues from all the ones that we're visiting in this video. This one is such a multi-layered one. The name itself is Among Us in English, which refers to that social deduction video game that was really popular during the COVID times. But what you see is a pair of boots with some bones sticking out of it and a skateboard. So why is that? Well, the boots refer to an old statue that used to be here. Before the Museum of Ethnography, this used to be a huge square, and during socialist times, parades were held here, and Stalin's statue was also at this square. During the 1956 revolution, the revolting Hungarians cut off the statue. The only thing that was left here were the boots, and today you can find those boots in the Memento Park alongside a lot of other communist era statues as well. What about the skateboard? That has nothing to do with Stalin, of course. If you look carefully, what does the Museum of Ethnography remind you of? Clearly, it's a half pipe. It is the heaven for skateboarders. So that's how you have here such a fun and complex small little statue that really shows the creativity of Mr. Kolodko. Right now we are in the Városliget City Park, right behind the Vajdahunyad Castle, and here you'll find the mini statue of Count Dracula himself. Now, a lot of you may know Béla Lugosi, who made this character famous in the movies, was a Hungarian-American actor. And this castle behind me, it's not an original castle that dates back centuries. This was actually created as a mixture of many different architectures throughout Hungarian history, and it also includes castles from Transylvania. And now, the answer is right there, Transylvania, where Dracula used to be. That's why we have Count Dracula here as well, also in memory of Béla Lugosi. Now, in this video we tried to cover as many of the statues as possible, but Mr. Kolodko is so productive that there are so many more, not just in Budapest, but all over Europe. And I hope that this video you still found useful. And when you come here to Budapest, you will visit some of these statues. And if you enjoyed this type of content, then make sure to check out some of our other videos. And if you don't want to miss what we make in the future, then also consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys in those future videos. Bye!